Welcome, fellow dreamer. Tonight, I invite you to drift away from the noise of the modern world and step gently into a time long past, into the misty fjords, rolling hills, and quiet hearths of the Viking Age. When you hear the word Viking, perhaps your mind fills with images of roaring warriors, sails catching the wind, and the clash of swords on distant shores. And yes, the Norse people were fearless explorers and skilled fighters, but they were also artists, musicians, athletes, storytellers, and friends. They laughed, they played, they carved beauty into wood and sang beneath the stars. This is not a story of raids and battles. It's a story of what the Vikings did for fun. A quieter, more human side of a people often remembered only for their storms. Tonight, we'll walk beside them, not on a battlefield, but on a peaceful day in a village tucked along the edge of a deep fjord. You'll hear the soft splash of water against wooden hulls, the ring of laughter from children at play, and the low hum of song echoing from within a longhouse. You'll sit beside the fire, feel the weight of a carved game piece in your hand, and listen to a skald's voice rise with the rhythm of an old saga. These are the moments we rarely hear about, the ones between the voyages and the legends, the everyday joys that brought light to long winters and warmth to even the fiercest hearts. Before we begin our journey through Norse leisure and celebration, I invite you to make yourself comfortable. Dim the lights, wrap yourself in something warm, and let the stillness of the north settle gently around you. The stories ahead are meant not only to inform, but to calm, to soothe the mind, open the imagination, and perhaps even guide you softly into sleep. And as we wander through this distant world together, I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight? Are you beside a fire of your own, tucked beneath heavy blankets in the dark? Or perhaps watching the moon rise beyond your window? Let me know in the comments below. It's always a joy to see how far these gentle stories can travel, across borders, across oceans, across time. If you find comfort in these peaceful journeys through history, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon so you'll always have a place to return whenever you need a moment of calm or a story to guide you to sleep. Now, take a deep breath, close your eyes if you like, and let's begin our journey into the lighter, quieter side of Viking life. The first light of morning filters through the mist that clings to the hills and the water's edge. The air is cool and damp, filled with the earthy scent of moss-covered stone and distant pine forests. You hear the rhythmic creak of wood and rope as small boats bob gently at their moorings. The fjord is calm, a long silver mirror stretching between steep cliffs, its surface only occasionally broken by the glide of a seabird or the soft splash of an oar. You are in a village tucked along the edge of the water, nestled between rolling green pastures and the dark shoulder of the forest. It is early, and the world is only just beginning to stir. A soft breeze moves through the thatched rooftops and wooden buildings, bringing with it the faint smells of salt, firewood, and freshly baked flatbread. Smoke curls upward from the openings in the rooftops of the longhouses, not hurried, not heavy, but steady. Inside, the fires have been rekindled for the morning, and the warmth slowly pushes away the cold that crept in during the night. The people here are already rising. A young woman steps outside, carrying a wooden pail. She crosses to the stream, barefoot in the dew-damp grass, and fills it with clear, cold water. Her hair is braided down her back, her dress belted with woven wool, dyed with plants she helped gather last summer. She moves without urgency. There is work to be done, but no rush. The day will unfold in its own time. You hear low voices now, men and women greeting one another, asking after the children, commenting on the strength of the wind. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs, the kind of laugh that is sudden and free, bursting out like sunlight through clouds. You turn your head and see two boys chasing each other across the open yard, one of them clutching a carved stick shaped like a sword. Their feet kick up bits of grass and dirt as they run, weaving between drying racks strung with fish and bundles of herbs. An old man sits on a bench by the boathouse, carefully rubbing oil into the surface of a paddle. He hums as he works. Not a song exactly, but something close, a tune that has no name but knows its place, passed down like memory. His fingers are strong, his movements slow and deliberate. He doesn't look up as others pass by, but they nod to him, and he nods back. From the fields beyond the village, the first animals begin to stir. Goats bleating, chickens fluttering down from their perches. A woman scatters feed with one hand and adjusts her cloak with the other. Her breath clouds in the morning air. She talks softly to the animals, not expecting answers, but giving them just the same. It is not a morning of spectacle or ceremony, but of rhythm, the quiet rhythm of a people living with the land, of life shaped by seasons, tides, and the rising sun. As the village fully wakes, more voices join the chorus of the day. Someone is repairing a fishing net near the water, carefully knotting the fiber with practiced hands. A group of teenagers walk toward the woods, baskets on their backs, likely foraging for berries or mushrooms. A few men gather near the forge, already sweating as they pump the bellows and shape glowing metal into tools or nails or horseshoes. But even in all this activity, there is peace. There is no endless shouting, no rush of carriages or bells, no pressing noise of machines. The loudest sounds are the gulls calling above the water and the occasional crack of firewood as it shifts in the hearth. This is the kind of morning the Vikings knew well. Not a morning of conquest or chaos, but of quiet purpose. Days like this made up most of their lives. Yes, they sailed far, and yes, they could be fierce. But those journeys began in places like this, in the calm of dawn, among the scent of earth and sea, beside friends and kin. This was their center, their beginning. As the sun lifts higher, the mist begins to thin, revealing the wide blue of the sky and the mountains that frame the fjord like ancient sentinels. You watch a longboat glide silently into view from around the bend. Its hull is painted in deep reds and browns, its carved prow shaped like a dragon. Two men row gently, not in haste, but for practice, their oars dipping in unison. A child watches from the shoreline, mimicking their movements with a stick in the sand. From inside the longhouse, the smell of porridge fills the air. Someone has stirred a pot of barley and honey over the fire. A woman lifts a wooden spoon and tastes it, nodding with approval. The meal will be shared soon, perhaps with neighbors, perhaps with travelers who arrive unannounced. Hospitality is sacred here. To share food is not just kindness, it is duty. You step inside the longhouse and feel the warmth of the hearth against your skin. The fire crackles softly, casting flickering light on the carved beams and hanging herbs. A man sits by the fire, mending his cloak with a bone needle. Another plays a soft melody on a lyre, his fingers plucking gently at the strings, filling the room with a soothing, hollow sound. No one rushes. Time is full, but not crowded. In this world, leisure and labor live side by side, to rise with the sun, to work with your hands, to share laughter and stories by the fire. This is the rhythm of life here. And as you breathe in the scent of smoke and bread and sea, you begin to feel it in your own chest, that steady, calming beat. This is not the Viking world of battles and conquest. This is the world of mourning, simple, soft, and real. A world where joy is found in the weaving of a basket, in the rhythm of a paddle, in the game of children and the wisdom of elders. Here, as the light spills over the hills and dances on the water, you understand what the old ones knew, that peace is not weakness, that work is not a burden, and that even the fiercest people once woke to mornings like this, full of calm, full of breath, full of life. As the morning sun climbs higher over the fjord and the village awakens to the gentle hum of daily life, a different kind of energy begins to stir, one rooted in movement, in challenge, and in friendly rivalry. In the open field beyond the houses, where the grass is thick and soft beneath the feet, the younger villagers begin to gather. Their chores are not yet done, but there is time, and in that time there is room for games, not the kind played with dice or boards, but the kind that test the body, the kind the Vikings loved. Games of strength, of endurance, of skill, sharpened like a blade over fire. These were not just pastimes, they were traditions, training, bonding, and yes, entertainment. You hear the sound of laughter, a deep, honest kind, and turn to see two young men squaring off in the center of the field, barefoot, sleeves rolled, eyes locked. Around them, a circle begins to form. Friends, cousins, even elders, leaning on their walking sticks with knowing smiles. They are about to wrestle. The Vikings called it a traditional form of grappling passed down through generations. It wasn't just a display of brute strength. It was skillful, graceful, like a dance made of muscle and momentum. Opponents would take hold of each other's belts and try to throw the other to the ground, using balance, agility, and quick thinking. There were rules, always rules. You couldn't just tackle or strike. You had to outwit, to outmaneuver, to move like water around a stone. The two men begin to circle one another slowly, feet planted, eyes steady. Then, with a burst of motion, one lunges. The crowd gasps and cheers as they twist, shift, and fall into a tangle, one landing flat on his back. He laughs and slaps the earth in mock defeat. Hands are clasped, shoulders are clapped, and the game begins again with another pair. Not far from the field, a group of older boys are testing their strength in another way by lifting stones. Heavy, rounded boulders of different sizes sit beneath a simple wooden frame. This game is older than any tale, simple and primal. Pick up the stone and place it on the ledge. No magic, no tricks, just you, the weight, and the will to lift. One boy squats low, arms around the stone. His face tightens with effort as he heaves it upward, inches, then more. The group roars encouragement. With a final grunt, he manages to set it onto the ledge and steps back, chest rising like a tide. He is grinning, not because he has won anything, but because he has proven something to himself, and that, in this world, is more than enough. These games served many purposes in Viking society. Yes, they were fun, but they were also preparation for battle, for voyages, for survival in a land where winters were long and labor was hard. A man who could wrestle well might also survive a raid. A boy who could lift heavy stones might grow into a sailor who could row for days across stormy seas. But strength alone was never the only goal. Honor mattered just as much. A good loser was respected, a gracious winner even more so. Cheating, bragging, cruelty, these were frowned upon. Games were a reflection of character, a way to show the village not just what your body could do, but what kind of person you were. Even swimming, a skill often taken for granted in other cultures, was part of Viking contests. In warm months, young men would race across rivers, or test who could hold their breath the longest beneath the surface. In colder times, they would break through ice just to dive in, proving their resilience. Some would wrestle even in the water, grappling while floating, the icy current adding another layer of difficulty. Further along the shoreline, a different group has gathered for a more playful contest. Two boys take turns balancing on a long log placed across a narrow stream. Their goal is simple: knock the other into the water using only their hands and balance. No punching, no pushing with full force, just skillful shoves and dodges. The crowd of children shouts encouragement from the bank, erupting in laughter when one slips with a splash. Nearby, a man tosses a short wooden spear toward a set of stacked barrels. It's not hunting season, and this isn't a serious test. Just a moment to keep his eye sharp, his arm steady. He motions for his daughter to try, and she does. Her throw is wide, but strong. He nods in approval. Skills like this are passed down quietly, moment by moment, day by day. At the edge of the field, some of the elders sit on low stools, sharing mead and memories. They talk about games they played in their youth, contests long forgotten by most, jokes from feasts, victories from years ago. One begins to carve a new Hennefataf piece from bone as he speaks, a symbol that strength may fade, but tradition endures. As the afternoon wears on, the games begin to wind down. Muscles ache, throats grow dry, and the sun starts to dip lower in the sky. But the mood remains warm. Stories are shared. The winners are teased. The losers are praised. And all who played walk away with something more than they had before. Not a prize, but a memory. You sit in the grass, the earth still warm beneath you, and watch the sky change colors. The laughter still echoes, but softer now. The tired, happy laughter of people who have given their all, not for glory, but for the simple joy of it. And in this moment, you realize something beautiful. Even in a world of axes and iron, of long ships and battle cries, the Vikings still made time to play. They raced, they wrestled, they leaped and swam, not just to prepare for hardship, but to feel alive, to connect, to laugh, to measure themselves against each other and against the world. And perhaps, as you close your eyes and let the memory of this day settle around you, you carry that lesson too, that play is not just for the young or the idle or the lucky. It is for all of us, a way to remind the body that it is strong and to remind the spirit that it is free. As the golden light of day fades behind the distant hills, a quiet transformation takes place in the Viking village. The hum of activity softens, the clang of metal, the laughter from the wrestling fields, the sounds of footsteps and shouted greetings. They all begin to fall away like ripples settling on a still lake. Shadows grow longer, then blur into one another, until the world is wrapped in a gentle dusk. Inside the longhouse, the fire crackles low in the central hearth. The scent of smoked fish and baked bread lingers in the air. Faint wisps of steam rise from wooden bowls filled with evening stew, a hearty mix of barley, root vegetables, and whatever meat was trapped or hunted during the day. The family eats together, seated on benches, some on furs or woven mats. The mood is peaceful, satisfied. It is here, in the stillness after supper, that the games begin. Not the games of wrestling or throwing or racing. Those belong to the sunlight. These are slower, quieter, thoughtful games. Games played by firelight. You sit with others near the hearth, surrounded by carved beams and heavy wooden pillars blackened by years of smoke. A carved box is brought out and opened carefully, its contents removed and laid in the center. A square wooden board marked with a pattern of intersecting lines and dozens of hand-carved playing pieces. You are about to play Hennafadov, a Viking board game beloved across the Norse world. The word Hennafadov means king's table, and that's exactly what it is. The game is a battle, not of bodies, but of minds. A small force defends a central king piece, while a larger group attempts to surround and capture him. It's not unlike chess, though older and uniquely Viking. Each piece is crafted from bone or stone, smoothed by hand. The king is taller than the rest, often painted or dyed with ash to give it a darker hue. The attacking pieces might be shaped like little warriors with shields. The defenders, perhaps smaller and sleeker, representing speed and strategy. Players take turns. One moves, then the other. No dice, no randomness, only logic, patience, and observation. Around the room, other games are being played too. Children roll carved knuckle bones across the floor, cheering when they land in just the right way. A younger girl is playing with a set of small wooden animals, lost in her own quiet world, arranging and rearranging them by the firelight. Hennafadov, though, holds the attention of the adults. Two men face each other across the board, brows furrowed in focus. Around them, others watch with quiet interest, murmuring ideas or silently studying the next move. The rules are simple, but mastering the game takes years. Every village has a few who are truly skilled, their minds sharp as steel, their movements calm and deliberate. You learn by watching. You pick up on subtle strategies. How to lure attackers into traps. How to protect the king by creating false openings. And when your turn comes, you find your hand surprisingly steady. The fire glows on your skin as you place your piece and feel a ripple of satisfaction. It's not about winning, it's about the rhythm, the back and forth, the stillness between moves. These games served more than just entertainment. They were practice for the mind, for leadership, for patience. Warriors who could outthink an opponent on a board could outmaneuver them on the battlefield. And during long winters, when the world outside was dark and bitter, these games brought warmth in their own quiet way. But beyond even that, there was something else they offered, something less tangible, but no less important: connection. The longhouse, by day, is a place of work and duty. By night, it becomes a sanctuary, a place where family and neighbors come together not out of necessity, but for company. Around the game board, voices soften and tensions dissolve. Stories are told between turns. Teasing is exchanged with a smile. And everyone, the old, the young, the weary, the strong, gathers in the same pool of flickering light. Above you, herbs hang drying from the beams. The smell of thyme and juniper lingers in the air. A pot of mead is passed between friends, warming the hands as much as the belly. Someone plays a slow melody on a wooden flute, the notes echoing softly against the timbered walls. This is what the Vikings did when the sails were folded and the axes hung up, when the knight asked not for action, but for presence. In some homes, other games appear, early versions of dice games, counting games, or riddles. Norse riddles were especially beloved, short, clever verses that asked a listener to guess the answer. One might go, "I am born in a box, yet stretch past the sky. I have no voice, but I help you fly." The answer, of course, might be a sail, or perhaps something more poetic, like imagination itself. These word games were part of the oral tradition, ways to pass time, yes, but also ways to pass down wisdom, sharpen the tongue, and celebrate cleverness. And as the evening deepens, you notice how soft everything becomes. The fire grows lower. The voices turn to whispers. Some lean back and close their eyes, content just to listen, to the flute, to the fire, to the lull of conversation. The game board still sits between you and your opponent, though the pieces are barely visible now. You move one more, then pause. You smile. It doesn't matter who wins tonight. What matters is that you were here with others, sharing space, trading thoughts, laughing softly in the dark. The longhouse may be a place of shelter, but it is also a place of warmth, not just from heat, but from people. And in a world that is often remembered for war, these moments of peace shine brightest. As you lay down your final piece and watch the fire burn low, you feel something gentle settle over you, a quiet satisfaction, a full heart, and perhaps, as you drift into your own sleep tonight, you'll carry that stillness with you. The soft clatter of carved pieces on wood, the glow of firelight on familiar faces, and the reminder that even in the harshest of times, the Vikings found space for thought, for play, and for rest. The fire is low now, no longer a blaze, but a warm, steady glow. Coals pulse gently in the hearth, like the embers of a living heart, casting long shadows on the beams of the longhouse. The smell of charred wood and dried herbs lingers in the still air, mixing with the faint sweetness of mead and the must of wool cloaks. Most of the games have ended. Children are curled beside their parents, heads resting on folded arms or woven blankets. A few adults still sit near the fire, murmuring quietly or passing around the last of the stew. Outside, the wind stirs the thatch above the roof, whispering in the dark like a voice from the trees. And then, another voice rises, not a shout, not a chant, a song. It begins low, just one voice, a man's, deep and slow, the melody winding like a river through the silence. It is not polished like the songs of court musicians, not grand like a hymn, but it holds something older, earthier. You feel it in your chest more than your ears. He sings in Old Norse, the language of his people, of his ancestors. But even if you don't understand the words, the feeling reaches you. It's a song of home, of longing, of the sea. When he finishes, there is no applause, just nods, a soft hum of appreciation, the way one honors something sacred and shared. Then, another joins him, a woman this time, her voice higher, more delicate, weaving a harmony above his. Together, their voices become a thread in the fabric of the night. You close your eyes and listen. This is not just entertainment. This is inheritance. In Viking culture, music and storytelling were never separate from life. They were part of it, as essential as food, as meaningful as fire. There were no books on shelves, no screens or scripts. The stories lived in the minds and mouths of the people, carried forward like flame from one generation to the next. And those who could tell them best were honored above almost all others. They were called skalds, poets, keepers of memory, masters of rhythm and verse. A skald was more than a storyteller. They were a bridge between past and present, between men and gods. Their words could honor the dead, elevate the living, or sway the mood of an entire gathering. You watch now as one such skald steps forward. He's older, gray-bearded eyes lined by laughter and grief. He carries no instrument, just a carved staff and the weight of his voice. He begins his tale, not with a bang, but with a breath. Long ago, when the world was still young and the gods walked freely among us, the room stills. Even the wind outside seems to pause, and just like that, you are elsewhere. You are in Asgard, among the halls of Odin and Thor. You ride with Valkyries across stormy skies. You see Loki's tricks unfold and watch as great ships burn beneath the moon. The words move like water, sometimes rushing, sometimes rippling, and you follow them willingly, happily, into memory and myth. The skald's voice rises and falls like a tide. His gestures are simple, but they conjure mountains, wolves, and thunder. His eyes shine as he speaks, not from vanity, but from the thrill of awakening old magic. You glance around the room and see it on every face. The children wide-eyed with wonder, the elders nodding in recognition, the warriors leaning forward, remembering their place in stories that stretch beyond any single lifetime. This is how the Norse remembered their world. Through sagas and Eddas, long poems filled with gods and giants, heroes and betrayal, loss and honor. Some were hundreds of lines long, memorized word for word, and performed again and again, not just for pleasure, but to preserve. Because, in a world where most could not read or write, the voice was everything. Music, too, had its place, not only in joy, but in ceremony and grief. Instruments were simple but powerful: wooden lyres, bone flutes, animal skin drums. The lyre was especially beloved, small enough to cradle in your lap, but able to fill a room with its warm, harp-like tone. You hear one now, as another villager plucks a quiet tune. The notes are soft and open, like drops of rain on still water. There are no lyrics, just melody, a song to carry the silence forward, not to interrupt it. You wonder how many nights like this have passed before. How many fires have burned low in quiet longhouses, while voices wove threads of story and song across the dark. Countless, because the Vikings knew something we sometimes forget, that stories are more than distraction. They are anchors. They tell us who we are. They remind us where we came from and what we value. Strength, yes, but also loyalty, cleverness, love, and sacrifice. Even in a world often remembered for axes and raids, the tongue was sharp as any blade. A clever insult could win a duel. A beautiful verse could win a heart. And a story, well told, could live forever. The skald finishes his tale with a final line. And so the gods watched the world, waiting, wondering, for the next brave soul to rise. He bows his head, silence follows. Then the fire pops, and someone exhales softly. Another skald might rise. Another song might follow. Or maybe this is the right moment to let the night stretch and settle. You feel your body relax. Your mind is full, not with worry, but with wonder. You've traveled far tonight, without ever leaving the hearth. You've sat among storytellers and heard the echoes of 1,000 winters. And you understand now that the Vikings were not just fighters. They were dreamers, creators, guardians of word and rhythm. As you lie back, the warmth of the fire brushing your skin, you imagine what stories your own voice might carry, what songs you might sing into the dark, not for applause, but for connection, because in the end, we are all just travelers, carrying our stories across time, hoping that somewhere, someone will sit and listen. And tonight, you listened. The air is different tonight. Not just colder or stiller, but heavier somehow, charged with something deeper, older, joyful. It's the evening of a feast. The entire village has gathered near the great longhouse, not for war, not for work, but for celebration, a rare pause in the demanding rhythm of Viking life. One of those nights where fire is plentiful, laughter is easy, and bellies are full. The sun has dipped low, setting the sky ablaze with soft orange and violet. In the fading light, the people arrive, dressed in their best, thick cloaks of dyed wool, necklaces of bronze and beads, hair braided in intricate loops. Children skip between adults, cheeks flushed with excitement, already tasting the promise of sweet cakes and stories by firelight. Inside the longhouse, the great hall glows. The hearth burns high, and its warmth touches every face. The tables, simple wood slabs laid end to end, are heavy with food and drink. Trenchers of roasted meat, baskets of barley bread, platters of fish, bowls of stewed cabbage and herbs, small dishes of salt, wild berries, soft cheeses. A feast drawn from the land itself, hunted, gathered, harvested, prepared with care. There is mead, of course, golden and sweet, made from honey and herbs, served in horns and clay cups. It flows freely, but not wastefully. Every drop feels like celebration. You sit with your kin, your neighbors, your friends. Plates are passed, laughter rises, and for a moment there is no rank, no task, no winter waiting just beyond the door. Only togetherness, only now. Feasting was at the heart of Viking life. It wasn't just about food. It was about belonging. A feast marked the passing of time, the memory of ancestors, the end of a harvest, the return of a ship, the beginning of a marriage, the changing of the sun. It was both sacred and ordinary, as vital as firewood in the snow. Some festivals were small, local, and quiet. Others were grand and ceremonial, pulling families in from nearby settlements, filling the halls with guests for days. The most famous, the Midwinter Festival, you might know it by another name, Yule, a celebration of light in the darkest time of year. It honored the gods and the turning of the sun, when the days would finally grow longer. For 12 nights, people feasted, gave gifts, lit fires, and sang songs to ward off the cold and the dark. Another favorite was the ritual offering to the gods. Animals were sacrificed, and their meat was shared among the people in gratitude for a good harvest or in hope for future blessings. The gods of fertility, weather, and war were all honored in turn. Freyr, Thor, Odin, each with their place in the great cycle of need and thanks. But tonight, the celebration is simpler. No sacrifice, no ceremony, just joy. A traveling skald has arrived from a distant settlement. He's been here before, but never stays long. His stories are different, strange and wide, filled with lands beyond the sea and people who speak in odd tongues. He's already drawing a small crowd near the fire, his voice rising above the clinking of cups. Someone nearby strikes up a tune on a lyre. A second person joins in, tapping a rhythm on a small hand drum. The room begins to shift, gently at first. Feet tapping, fingers drumming, heads nodding in time. The music is not perfect, but it is alive. Then the dancing begins. Not all at once. A couple stands and circles the hearth once. Then again, another pair joins them. Then a child, spinning awkwardly, laughing with abandon. The music quickens. Soon the space between tables is filled with movement. Bodies swaying, boots stomping, hands clapping in time with the song. You rise too, drawn not by pressure, but by pull. The fire flickers across every face, sweat on brows, smiles on lips. You move without thought, without plan, just the beat, the warmth, the moment. You are not alone. No one is. This is what the Vikings knew, perhaps better than most, that in a world of hardship, joy is not an indulgence. It is resistance. It is medicine. It is memory. Outside, a smaller group gathers around a fire pit beneath the stars. Torches flicker. Smoke rises. A woman pours mead into the earth, an offering to the ancestors, the quiet part of the feast, the honoring part. Names are spoken, some of them recent, fathers, sisters, fallen warriors, some ancient heroes of the sagas, gods and giants, spirits whose stories live in the bones of the land. There is no fear here, only respect, only remembrance. The feast wins on, dishes are cleared, more mead is shared, jokes are told, some clever, some crude. Riddles are exchanged and solved. A man tries to balance a bowl on his head and stumbles into a bench, prompting peals of laughter. No one scolds him. The room is full of the kind of joy that expects nothing and forgives everything. Eventually, the flames begin to dim. Some people have already slipped away, finding beds or benches or soft places near the hearth. A few remain, voices low, humming an old tune that barely holds itself together. You sit quietly, watching the embers collapse into one another. You feel full, not just in your stomach, but in your chest. This, you realize, is the real treasure. Not gold, not glory, not conquest. This, the warmth of a hall filled with friends. The glow of fire on the face of someone you love. The taste of mead and bread and shared memory. The sound of laughter echoing into the deep, long night. In the morning, the world will return, fields to tend, wood to chop, nets to mend. But for now, this moment belongs to joy. And as you close your eyes, letting sleep gather like snow on your shoulders, you know this. The Vikings sang, they danced, they feasted, not just to survive the dark, but to prove they were more than it. Morning has returned again to the village, but this time there is no feast, no contest, no gathering around song. Today is for the quiet work, the steady hum of hands, creating, shaping, weaving, carving, the kind of day that slips by like flowing water, calm and purposeful, a day for the things that last. Not everything in the Viking world was built from fire and steel. Much of it came from thread and wood, from bone and stone, from hours of patient labor under steady hands. The Norse were warriors, yes, but they were also weavers, smiths, potters, and carvers. They lived in a world where beauty was not only celebrated, it was built into everyday life. You step outside and hear it, the tap of a chisel, the whistle of a blade slicing through fiber, the soft clack of a shuttle sliding back and forth through a loom. These are not loud sounds. They don't demand attention, but they fill the air with a kind of rhythm, quiet, grounding, real. A woman sits near the doorway of her home, weaving cloth. Her loom is tall and upright, its wooden frame bound with wool thread dyed in earthy colors, ochre, moss, rust. Her fingers move with practiced grace, pulling the shuttle through the threads, tightening the weave with a comb carved from antler. Each line of fabric is a line of patience, of care, of vision. What she makes will keep someone warm. A tunic, perhaps, or a shawl. But that's not all it will be. Look closely, and you'll see a pattern emerging. Diamonds, spirals, the shape of a sunwheel. She's not just weaving fabric, she's weaving meaning. Across the yard, a man works on a piece of wood. He holds it steady in his lap, carving slow, even lines with a small blade. The shavings curl downward like feathers. You watch as shapes begin to emerge. Not just decoration, but story. He's making a panel for the prow of a boat. A dragon's head, its mouth open wide. It will not only cut through the sea, it will tell anyone who sees it, we are here. In Viking life, artistry was never separate from utility. Tools could be beautiful. Spoons were often carved with patterns. Handles were wrapped in colorful cord. Even combs, made from bone or horn, were etched with lines and symbols. These were not luxuries. They were ordinary things made with extraordinary care. Further down the path, near the forge, a blacksmith hammers metal into form. Sparks rise and fade into the air like tiny stars. He's making a knife, its edge thin, its handle wrapped in leather. You see how his eyes narrow, not just with focus, but with pride. Not pride in the sharpness, but in the making. For the Vikings, to make something was to leave a piece of yourself behind. Even the humble runestones, those carved markers placed along roads or at burial mounds, were more than memorials. They were acts of craftsmanship. Runes were not scribbled in haste. They were shaped slowly, chiseled with care. Each one carried sound, symbol, soul. The runes themselves, the elder Futhark, were not just letters. They were believed to carry power. The rune alges, shaped like a tree branch, meant protection. Jabbo, an X shape, meant gift or generosity. When a carver placed these on wood or stone, it wasn't only to be read, it was to be felt, invoked. Children learn early how to make. A girl kneels beside her mother, learning to spin wool using a drop spindle. She laughs when the fibers tangle, then tries again. A boy helps his father twist rope, mimicking his movements with earnest seriousness. They are not told to play, they are told to try, and they do, with hands that will one day become as sure as those they now watch. In the longhouse, older women sit together, embroidering fabric. Their needles dance in silence, drawing out figures, birds, deer, waves. The cloth will be stitched into a tunic or laid over a newborn's bed. Some of the symbols are purely decorative. Others are charms, stitched for luck, for love, for protection from harm. Nothing here is wasted. Even broken tools are repurposed. Bones become buttons. Antler becomes knife handles. A cracked pot may be mended with metal staples. The land provides, and the people give thanks. Not always in words, but in the way they shape and share what they've been given. You wander into a small workshop and see a row of objects on a shelf, each one humble and yet full of meaning. A comb, a bead, a fishing hook, a drinking horn rimmed with pewter. Every one of them touched by hands. Every one a record of a life lived with care. This is Viking creativity, not extravagant or wasteful, but enduring. It's not about decoration for decoration's sake. It's about turning necessity into expression, about finding a rhythm in repetition, a peace in process. You sit near a woman working leather. She doesn't speak, but nods once, then returns to her task. The knife in her hand moves with slow confidence, trimming away just enough to shape the piece. She'll make a pouch from it, perhaps a pair of shoes. The smell of the hide, earthy, rich, fills the space like incense. Around you, the village hums with creation, not the kind that screams for attention, but the kind that builds quietly, day after day, into something lasting, into home. You close your eyes and listen. The click of a loom, the scrape of a file on bone, the pop of embers from the forge. This is what echoes in the heart of every Viking home. Not just the songs of gods or the clash of blades, but the sound of something being made by hand for someone else. You think of your own hands, what they've made, what they've held, what they've repaired. And in this moment, you feel a connection that reaches far beyond this place. Because to create, to shape something with intention, is to leave a fingerprint in the fabric of time. And as the sun begins to dip behind the hills once more, and the makers lay down their tools for the evening, you understand something simple and true. The Vikings were not just destroyers. They were builders, makers, artists. And in their quiet moments, with the loom, the chisel, the needle, they told stories just as powerful as any skald could speak. There's a warmth that lingers in the air, even after the fire dies down, not from the hearth, but from hearts. After the meals are eaten, after the work is done, and after the longhouse grows quiet with rest, there is a kind of glow that remains, one not made of flame or sunlight, but of something deeper, something soft. You feel it in glances shared across a room, in the closeness of bodies gathered under furs, in the hush of laughter, muffled under hands and blankets. In this world, so often remembered for its warriors and weapons, there was also tenderness, and it lived in the quiet spaces, between raids, between winters, between breaths. The Vikings loved deeply, fiercely, sometimes messily, but never shallowly. Their stories, their sagas, are filled with lovers, separated by war, reunited by fate, or broken apart by duty. Love, in all its forms, was not a distraction from life. It was life. In the morning, you see a young couple by the water, speaking in low voices. Their hands barely touch, but their eyes are full of meaning. He passes her a carved token, a small knot of wood, polished smooth. It is not gold, but it is a gift, and that matters. Carving it took time. Giving it means more. Love here is not loud. It's not written in letters or sung from balconies. It's made of shared tasks, gathering firewood together, tending goats side by side, sewing patches on one another's clothes, staying awake a little longer just to talk in the dark. Marriages, too, were not always about passion alone. Many were arranged, decided by families. But even then, affection often grew. Not in sudden flames, but in slow embers. Two people learning to care, to laugh, to carry life together. It wasn't always easy, but few things in this world were. You see an older couple working together in the field. They don't speak much, but their movements are perfectly in sync, like the oars of a long ship, like lines of poetry. You watch the woman wipe her brow and then gently touch her husband's shoulder. He leans slightly into her hand before continuing. That's all. But it says everything. And then there's laughter. So much laughter. It starts small, a joke told by the fire, a playful jab between friends, a clever remark during a game. But soon it spreads, like wind through tall grass. Heads tilt back, shoulders shake, faces brighten. Even the stoic ones, the warriors, The elders, the quiet weavers, join in eventually. Because laughter here isn't a luxury, it's necessary. The Vikings were sharp-witted people. They loved riddles, teasing, and wordplay. Skalds weren't only poets. They were also comedians, entertainers. They used clever insults, double meanings, and surprise endings to draw gasps and grins from their listeners. It wasn't just about being funny. It was about being clever, showing the quickness of your mind as much as the sharpness of your tongue. At a gathering one evening, a man stands and delivers a flighting, a kind of verbal duel, half insult, half poetry. He challenges a friend across the fire, slinging a teasing rhyme about his crooked nose and clumsy feet. The crowd laughs, and the friend answers with a grin and a verse of his own, mocking the speaker's forgetful goat and sour mead. No one takes offense. It's a game, a dance, a way to sharpen the mind and lighten the heart. Children learn the art of joking early. They trade riddles while herding sheep, play tricks on each other with knots and carvings, sneak honey from the kitchen and blame it on the cat. The adults pretend to be stern, but they smile when the children look away. Even grief is met with a kind of humor. When someone dies, stories are told, not just of their bravery, but of their missteps, the time they fell into the river chasing a fox, the way they snored, louder than thunder. These memories are laughter made sacred, a way of keeping love alive even after breath is gone. And then there is friendship, the bond between comrades, neighbors, shipmates. These ties are strong, forged through work, through shared struggle, through long winters and dangerous journeys. To call someone partner, companion, was no small thing. It meant trust. It meant loyalty. It meant I would stand beside you in the worst of storms. You see two such friends repairing a net. They don't talk much, but their gestures, their silences, their grins when one makes a mistake say more than words. They've known each other since childhood. They've fished the same waters, sailed the same routes, told the same stories 100 times, and they'd still tell them again. At night, when the village sleeps, you hear these bonds in the sounds that linger. A whispered conversation between siblings, a lullaby hummed by a mother, the shuffling of furs as someone pulls a loved one closer in the cold. These are the sounds of love, of closeness, of human warmth in a harsh world. The Vikings may have built their legends in iron and ash, but they lived their lives in laughter, in love, in the hands they held and the stories they shared. They were fierce not only in battle, but in the way they cared, for family, for friends, for those who stayed and those who were lost. And as you lie here, listening to the wind rise and fall beyond the longhouse walls, you feel it too, that timeless comfort of being close to others, of knowing that even in the darkest times, we are not alone. We share warmth, we share bread, we share stories, we share joy, and sometimes we share silence, the best kind, when all is understood and nothing more needs to be said. You close your eyes and imagine that carved wooden token in your hand, the one passed from a young man to his love by the river. You feel its weight, you see the pattern etched with care, and you know this is what endures, not conquest, not fear, but closeness. So sleep now, knowing that in every age, in every land, people have loved, have laughed, have found warmth in one another. Even the Vikings. The night is still now, not silent, but still. The wind has settled. The longhouse sleeps. The fire, once lively and bright, has burned low, leaving only a soft, warm bed of glowing coals. They pulse gently in the hearth, casting shadows that flicker across the beams like spirits bowing one last time before departing. You lie beneath thick furs, the smell of wool and smoke in the air. Around you, others sleep, their breath slow, their bodies slack with rest. It's quiet here, but it's not empty. It's full of what's been shared. Stories, food, laughter, music, labor, dreams. Today, you walked the village paths of an ancient people. People remembered most for their strength, but known now, in the stillness, for something softer. You saw the morning mist rising off the fjord. You heard children laughing in the fields. You watched hands weaving cloth, shaping iron, carving wood into beauty. You listened to skalds speak of gods and heroes. You felt the warmth of a feast, the closeness of a friend, the soft press of love in a world that knew both hardship and joy. And now the day is finished. But the memory lingers, like the scent of pine smoke in your hair, or the taste of mead on your tongue. The Vikings believed that life was a journey, across seas, across seasons, across lifetimes. And journeys don't end when the sun sets. They continue through rest, through dreams, through the stories we carry inside us. As you lie still, you hear the soft creak of the longhouse walls. The wind sighs again, not with urgency, but as if in song. The thatch above your head whispers, and the night wraps around you like a well-worn cloak. There is peace here, not the silence of emptiness, but the fullness of a day well lived. The Old Norse had many words for peace. One of them, Fry Delta R, meant more than just the absence of conflict. It meant safety, belonging, harmony, a feeling of being exactly where you are meant to be. And in this moment, you feel it too. There's no need to rush. The world will turn without your pushing. The tide will rise without your call. The fire will burn and fade and rise again, just like you. All around you, symbols of the day remain, small but sacred. A strand of wool hanging from a loom, a wooden bowl still warm, a feather fallen from the headdress of a dancer, a game piece left midboard, the match unfinished, a carved token left beneath a pillow. These are the fragments of a life not ruled by urgency, but by rhythm, by seasons and sunrises, and the cycle of work and rest, of creation and stillness, of gathering and letting go. You let your thoughts drift now, not in a rush, but gently, like leaves floating on a slow river. You remember the sounds of the village, the hammer at the forge, the laughter by the water, the hush of voices before a skald's tale. Each sound has softened, echoing now only in your memory. You remember the faces, not perfect, not distant, but real. The smile of a friend, the furrowed brow of a craftsman, the glance between two lovers across a fire. They remain with you, not as figures from the past, but as companions in your own resting mind. Even in their hardest times, the Vikings made room for warmth for one another, for the joy of a meal, the gift of a song, the weight of a shared silence. And so, as your breath slows, you realize that you are not just leaving their world. You are carrying it with you, because what they cherished, we cherish still. The need to belong, the joy of making, the comfort of connection, the healing power of story. You shift slightly beneath your blanket and feel your body sink deeper into rest. The fire pops once, softly, one last ember sighing into the night. Above you, stars glitter through a small hole in the roof, placed there by design to let out the smoke and let in the sky. You watch them for a while, distant, ancient, unmoving. The Vikings used the stars to guide them across oceans. Now they guide you into sleep. There are no battles here, no waves to crash, no axes to swing, only rest, only dreams. Perhaps in your dreams you'll walk that path again, through the misty fjord, across the grassy field, into the hall of fire and laughter. You'll sit beside the old woman at her loom. You'll share a riddle by the hearth. You'll carve your name into a rune. Press your hand to the prow of a longship and feel the stories live in your bones. Or maybe you'll simply rest, cradled by the rhythm of breath and the memory of warmth. The flame fades, but the story continues, because stories, like rivers, never end. They only change direction. And so, wherever your dreams take you next, may you travel gently. May your fire stay lit. May your hands remain steady. And may your heart stay full. Thank you for walking this path tonight, for sitting by the fire, for listening, for dreaming. Sleep now, traveler. The stars are high, the village is still, and you are home.